All right, guys, big round of applause before we get started. The talent behind the Beach Brothers. All right, so I'm going to start things off with a question for you guys. Maybe Matthew first. The character of Moondog is such an extraordinary, powerful voice and vision, and so I want, out of your mind, who is Moondog, and how did you prepare to be Moondog? What's the Moondog universe in your realm? Then we're going to fact check that with Harmony after.
Let's fact check. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Moondog. Well, it was obvious pretty early for me that it was about all rhyme and not reason. It was about all music and not arithmetic. And I like to come at characters from a very logical place, and I threw that out the window pretty quickly with Moondog. And he's sort of a mosh pit of a bunch of cats I run into in my travels. A guy named Chris Kringle in Port Douglas, Australia, who sits on the beach every evening, 2 6-foot speakers jamming loud, staring out at an island that's about 50 miles out there that he can or cannot see, just talking with the people over there, and he's pretty damn sure they're talking back to him. And he may be right. There's another guy, Captain Steve, down in Nevis, one of those guys that has that perpetual line of saliva stuck right there, creases, because he's always kind of smoking. And he was a guy I met, and he was married to a woman, Eileen. They've been married for 27 years, had a beautiful daughter, and I asked him how they met, and he tells me a long story about working on an oil rig and off the coast of Florida and coming in every Friday night and going to this little lady dancing bar, and there was a certain set of legs in the back with these silk stockings, and man, he just loved those legs, man. And I kept asking him to take her out on my boat for lunch. She kept saying no, and the 8th time I went back, she said yeah. And so I took her out on Sunday in my boat, tooling around the bay. Just as I saw the opening to head out to the ocean, I pulled out there, and I just kept fucking going, man. Kidnapped his now wife and sailed around the world on their very first date. And it was a beautiful love story, but it was like, okay, that's one of those guys. He's also a little bit of Tom Petty. He's also sort of a folk poet out of a Dylan song. So he's a mosh pit of a bunch of those. And yeah, he's a guy, like I said, all music. I mean, I think his art is his life and the way he approaches it. He runs into pleasure, he runs into pain. He very quickly feels that that's the next note in the song of his life that he's conducting.
That is a wonderful answer. I'm very curious, I want to hear your response. And so what do you give Matthew to say you're going to live and embody Moondog? This is what I think Moondog is. How does that work with your process? How much do you give him?
I mean, you heard him. He's pretty tapped in. So he understood the character right away. So once I saw that, once I knew he knew, it's kind of a mashup of different people, different. For me, it was a lot about going to the Keys and seeing a certain type of person that, I love hanging out down there. This kind of embraces this idea of a lack of ambition, celebrates it. I always like that. And, not really paying attention to politics, or it's more about sunset and the weed and the houseboats. And it's more about a character who is chasing bliss in a certain cosmic vibration, let's say. And so, and I also like the idea that he's just totally unhinged and seeking pleasure. So whatever feels good, he just runs toward it. And I like the idea of a character who also has a kind of genius in him, but it's more of a burden. Do you know what I mean? He's got these blessings that have been bestowed, and at the same time, it's just he has total disregard and contempt. It's almost like we're saying, it's the poetry is the life. And so, but Matthew automatically, you just know he knew it.
I think when you and I, kind of for me, is when we tapped into this. It's an epidemic of joy.
Yeah.
This guy, and that's when it kind of clicked.
Yeah, and it's whether he has money or doesn't have money, whether he's sleeping in mansions or under bridges, he's having fun. And so that's a special thing. And so that's really, and I didn't want to make a film that had it, but I didn't want to write a character that had this fake character arc. you know, just to give him this thing that you're used to watching. I wanted him to be Moondog always, and that's the thing he is.
Yeah, you didn't write a stock character, that's for sure. So I want to turn the questions over to Isla and Stefania. And so, you know, I'm sort of contextualizing your roles as, you know, by genetics, two extremely strong women that love Moondog, but you know, certainly call him out on his abundant bullshit. I want to hear from both of you guys about getting involved in the project in the first place, reading the script, and working with Harmony.
Yeah, I think it was really important, at least for my character, Minnie, not to be judgmental of Moondog's rambunctiousness or his occasional immorality, and for her equally to be a sort of a seeker of a hedonistic lifestyle, to be in love with an open relationship, and to be non-conformist or traditional in her values, because they're kind of twin souls, and that, you know, their love really is what drives the story forward, which is obviously easy when it's McConaughey's. And I just was so excited to work with Harmony, and I remember the first time we FaceTimed, and my agent had said, Harmony's worried that you look a bit young. So I obviously got the worst lighting in the house to FaceTime, and then begged him and tried to almost pull out my birth certificate to prove I was 1,000 years old. And obviously it's just been so incredible. Harmony is such an original thinker, the way he is so experimental, and he'll shoot the same scene in several locations, and he just, he thinks about the world in such a different way, kind of alchemizes the absurd into the subversive. He's just this sort of brilliant person to be around, and he's also just so cool. Harmony is the coolest person I know. I can't quite believe he allowed someone like me, who's so uncool, to be in his movie. So thank you.
I got you.
Well, when I read this script, I was laughing the whole way through, which doesn't always happen. It took me. So from the get-go, I loved the story, the script, the way it was written, and also just being on set. Harmony allowed us to be so flexible and to kind of have this space to just play, which was really different and kind of scary as well, because I'm used to having the script and just saying the lines, but to have that flexibility to just go and see where it takes us, that was really fun. And to be able to do it in different locations, that was something really different. And yeah, to me, Heather also, even though she doesn't necessarily agree with everything that Moondog does, she's or her dad does, she still loves him, and I didn't want her to be a typical teenager that's hating her parents, but just
very young teenager.
Yeah.
Very, very young. 10. She's playing 10 in the movie.
10. But yeah, someone who understood, but also was strong and had values and kind of made him accountable. But yeah, it was just a really fun set to be on, and from the beginning to the end, it was just such a cool experience with music playing, being in Miami. Yeah, very surreal, and it's cool that it's being premiered here. It's been really fun.
So Harmony, I want to talk about some of the other, there's this amazing range of characters in the movie, but I want to start off, maybe you can talk about Moondog's clan, the homeless crew that he rolls with, and this is something you've certainly worked with in your films in the past, and just, it's strange, there's this kind of fucked up Harmony Korine dignity that you give to the homeless actors in your work, and I'm just curious to have you talk about that in general in a vague way.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought, Moondog's like a cipher, and all these people go through him, and he's just it's a thing. It's he's a magnet for eccentrics, and he just loves their stories, and they love him. They gravitate towards him. So, yeah, it was just, the homeless guys. That's his crew, or it's just somebody. He probably just met him the night before, but immediately it was why don't we have a party? And I think it's kind of like that with everybody.
Well, now let's go on to some more famous people. I just, watching sort of Snoop Dogg appear as Snoop Dogg in the movie, just sort of kind of mind-melting in a way.
Yeah.
Same with Jimmy Buffett. I have no earthly idea like what their force is on the set. So can you talk about? I think are they similar or different? And they're crazy cameos that are fascinating.
Yeah, Matthew can also talk about that. But Snoop is actually technically not playing himself.
Okay.
He would not sign on to do the show.
No, that was like
He's
Listen to
lingerie.
this
Couple
script, though. Before this act.
this is true.
So before you want Snoop, right? Snoop.
Yeah,
he's written as Snoop.
Is written as Snoop in the movie.
All right. Snoop's got the script. Snoop's now read the script. The word gets back to
He's
Harmony.
cast.
He's cast, but he's not quite in yet, right?
Right.
So he's got a note. He's got an urgent.
I get a call saying that Snoop has notes.
So
Which I was like, oh, holy shit.
he finally gets on that call. He says, yeah, what's up, Snoop? Was you Skyping? Or on the phone? On the phone. Snoop says, yeah. He goes, I got a big note. Harmony's like, yeah. He goes, well, my character's name isn't Snoop. My character's name is Ray, which is short for loungere, because I'm smooth as silk, baby.
Lingerie, because I'm smooth as silk. Yeah, I'm smooth as silky.
Okay. Were you waiting for there to be more after that?
Yeah, and then I was like, that's it? But I liked the name, lingerie. I was like, yeah, let's go for it. But the most interesting thing was that, so that way he wasn't playing himself. He was also an R&B singer. But when we were picking out costumes, he only wanted to wear clothes that had Snoop. Like if you watch closely, it says Snoop on all his on all his outfits. But then I was like, it's kind of got some weird Stone logic to it. And
Tell them about how Martin Lawrence came aboard.
And Martin, yeah, I mean Martin was great. Martin was he's like a hero of mine. He was one of my favorite comedians. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he had a similar thing where I was on the phone with him, and he was like, I got a note. And I was like, uh-oh. And he hadn't even accepted the film yet. But he was like, originally the script was written for him to have a parrot on his shoulder the whole movie. He was just feeding coke to. And he's like, man, I don't want that parrot on my shoulder. So now we have a stuffed parrot. But I was like cool with that too. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can talk a little bit about Miami. You live in Miami, and this is probably a non-starter, but Stefani, were you born in Miami? Do you have any recollections, or maybe? And if not, you can say no comment. I don't want to talk about Miami because I left when I was a kid. But for you, it's like it feels like it's an integral part of not just this story, but a lot of what you write. Just talk about Miami as a character.
No, it's just I just love South Florida. But I love Florida because it's the weirdest state, and I live there, and it's just the strangest. I can never wrap my head around it. And but South Florida, it's a vibe. I just love the way it looks. I love the sky, the palm trees. I hate the cold. I like the demographic and how it's always changing, and the Keys. It's just this kind of. It feels separate. It's part of America, but it's separate, and there's a lot of stories there. And I just been super interested in it for a while. And I also just like, I kind of, when you watch the movie, it's important. I want you to feel like you're there. Like you'd feel the wind and the incense on the houseboat.
What do you got about Miami? Anything?
Well, yeah, I was born in Miami, but I was there for the first 4 years of my life, and I do remember it. So being able to film there and have family there, it was really special. But I was raised in New Zealand, so that's more home. But I definitely feel like, part of me is in Miami. My mom is Cuban, so the Cuban culture there definitely rings true to me. So, yeah, it was amazing being able to film.
So, one of the strongest characters is Zac Efron's haircut. So I want to talk about maybe just the little juicy details, like how you guys work with wardrobe to define the characters. We know that Snoop likes Snoop on his, or lingerie likes Snoop on his outfits, but Moondog had a very particular wardrobe sense, and is that coming from your brain, or do you have collaborations? And how much does the cast have to say in that?
Zac Efron's hair was. I was staring at a panini. And then I just thought that would look good on Zach's hair. That's really how it happened. And then Moondog's look was, yeah, we just played around. I like the idea that he wears like uniforms, like that he has a kind of like shirt and short, like always matching, kind of like, I just like that he had a kind of uniform look. There was something nice about that, even though he wears stuff inside out, we're not. And then fanny packs, and a lot of it is Key West style. A lot of it is like houseboat style, maybe taken to an extreme. And then we got into the whole idea of like his clothes being on fire, like him.
I remember you saying that in the room. No, not just a flame. I want him to look like he is really on fire.
Because he is on fire, you know. He's always on fire, so we wanted the clothes to, we figured out the look.
Got it.
Spend a lot of time down there, you're like, oh, it looks good, this guy's hair, he's on, develop it.
And
Is it your vision on screen, or is it a collaboration with the folks that, hey, maybe this would work? I mean, Matthew, do you have any say in what you showed up in to set every day?
We were pretty set early on, with what that was before we got set, so the wardrobe was...
I think that was the first, and then once you had that, you kind of started to tap in. I mean, I think that's true for most of the character, even Minnie. It's like once you have your clothes, once you're tapped in.
Yeah.
Right?
It's, because I needed to find, the kind of one, that Snoop would want to shag. But Matthew was so brave. I remember Matthew, do you remember like early on in the camera test, you had like, not an infected ear, but you had a banana poking out of your ear, a small banana?
Yes, banana.
And it was there was some blood involved, and everybody was like, Matthew, we don't need to wear it. And Matthew's like, nope, I got it, and just like pushed on through.
And he was wearing a banana hammock. Remember the G-string, the orange G-string?
Yeah, there were many multicolored.
That was fun.
Yeah, and the Shazam ring, and banana, because it's always a good time to monkey around. It's a good idea for Moondog.
It informs your character.
Sure, it's fun.
Let's talk about another one of the supporting characters, which is the copious amounts of marijuana, possibly because of lingerie. Maybe I'll just leave it there, because I don't want to presume. Maybe it was sort of that Hollywood type fake marijuana, just to keep it a clean set. But you tell me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next question. I have a particular story on that. So the scene where Moondog comes to Lingerie's house, and he's turning him on to the magic weed that he wrote all his hits on. I think we're shooting on Thursday evening. I showed up, and I go to the prop, make sure I've got all my prop weed, which is like oregano and such. And Snoop's got his weed, which is like drinking water for him. And we go do the scene, and he goes, "Oh, here's what you got to smoke, Moondog. This is what I wrote all my hits on." So he starts passing me, and Moondog's not a guy who takes a little toke. Moondog pulls. Well, the first take was a long take. It was like a 7-8 minute. I don't know how long. It was a long take, enough for Snoop to pass it back and forth 5 or 6 times. As soon as we yell cut, Snoop goes, "Yo, Moondog, that ain't proper weed. That's Snoop weed." Buckle up, man. I do not remember the rest of the evening. I know I went straight to mammalian sounds, and I was told I rapped a lot.
No, it was weird. It was really weird. It was like I was staring at the monitor. It was late at night, and also I think everybody, because we were shooting inside this house, I was starting to feel tingly myself, and I think everybody had a kind of secondhand Snoop weed buzz. But I was watching the scene, and then all of a sudden Matthew started going like, "Man, there's some potato chips stuck to my toes." He's like, "I got potato chips in my toes." And I was like, I looked at the script, and I was like, "Is that in the script?" And she's like, "He's stoned." And yeah, that stuff is serious. It made the rest of the day like pretty crazy.
I'm listening to this for a compliment. The next day at about 5:30, 6 o'clock, I get to work and I go, Snoop, you want to fill me in on how last night went? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, I don't even remember most of it, man. After you got me so high, he's like, he goes, Moondog, you did great. You hit 4 in the park home runs.
Well, you mentioned the script. So I read an early version of the script. It changed a lot when I saw the finished form, and I'm curious about that process too, because all the dialogue feels so like natural, and is there a lot of collaboration on set in terms of or improvisation, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it improv so much, but it's like there's the script, and then you try to change, you try to let the script, because the script is really just words on a page, just kind of just ideas. I always felt it's just a jumping off point. And then when you get people that are really tapped into, actors that are really tapped into the character in a way, it's more riffing. It's more like a musical thing. It's more about like a vibe that goes back and forth. And then it's almost like once you're in character and you're getting the kind of plot points and you're getting the story points, it's almost like everything they say really is, once they hit it, once they're in the pocket, it's real. And so you kind of, and also I shoot so many takes in different locations, so you kind of like want to leave room. You shoot the script, but then you also see what else happens around it, kind of. And then it becomes a kind of musical thing, a riff.
Well, I want to be respectful of these guys' time, because it's South by and some of the folks have some other obligations. So I'm going to do one last question. It's sort of a philosophical question for today. This is a movie about a very particular character, Moondog, and in 2019, what as a society can we take away from the character of Moondog and the messages of the Beach Bum? And if you think that's a lame question, then you can just say, "Fuck you, Tim. That's a lame question." It's a totally valid answer, but I'm going to pass it on to all 4 of you guys.
Oh, that's a good question. I just say it's about enjoying life. You know, everything got really serious, and people, it's like, and I think there's something about just kind of enjoying the moment, finding the bliss in it, not taking things too seriously. It's nice sometimes. The best movie is the sunset, you know, and just life just goes by so quickly. And I think it's one of those things. Moondog and a lot of the characters, it really is just about being in the moment, and chasing the bliss, and not getting caught up in things.
Yeah, you said that when we first started working together. You're like, I think, we need this at the time, at these times. And I really love logic, conscientiousness, and all this stuff. And like I said earlier in my first answer, that threw that out the window very early with Moondog. And I said to him, I was like, oh, this is a vacation without any condemnation. This is 4-dimensional. Let's really take the lid off and have it be all rhyme and no reason. And in that way, it was a vacation. And it is a fun time in many ways, if you want to say. Is it an opportune time in this day and age? It's the chaos of it was the order for Moondog. I mean, he's chasing something which Harmony, I think, does with his work. He's not chasing the truth. He's chasing the transcendence of the truth. That's what he wants to get off on. And he's got a large appetite and large threshold for what gets him off. But he demands that from the world. And then finally, I would just say this: Moondog's got something I learned from him, that he doesn't have much crisis in his life because he doesn't give crisis that much credit.
Right.
And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten is from a 98-year-old man in Alabama, my old roommate in college. His grandpapa, my roommate came back from spring break, and I said, "How was it?" He goes, "Oh, I got some great advice from Grandpa." I said, "Was it? What wasn't?" I said, "Pappy, what was the best advice you could give me?" And he said, "Son, I have had thousands of crises in my life, and most of them never happened." That's a good one. Put in your pocket.
Well, also like in life, so much happens and so many crises or so many bad things can happen, but it's how you respond to it. And like Matthew was saying, it is how you respond, and you can let it kind of take you down, or you can kind of let it go and keep moving forward. So it's just to like relax, let things go, not take things too seriously, have fun, and we only have one life, so you might as well just enjoy it. Even though all this chaos is happening in the world, we can feel depressed or feel like anxious, but you can also have a good time and be with people that you love, and just like break the rules sometimes and not be so hard on yourself.
And I think my favorite message from the movie is connection. It's just how, you know, we're so divided, we live in divided times. It's so beautiful to see Moondog without any judgment, meeting people from all walks of life, and just and seeing them all with an open heart, and that's a takeaway for all of us.
Well, guys, I really, really thank you for for making a wonderful piece of art and sharing it with us and being here this morning. Guys, you got a role. You got this hashtag thing I was talking about before. The Beach Bum comes out on March 29th, so tell your friends they have an adventure in their future. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.